In just a minute, we're going to talk about a bunch of methods that have stopped me procrastinating. Now, one of the sources of my frustration is the fact that I can't seem to get anything done, in the fact that I can't even start them in the first place. And when you keep putting things off, it tends to snowball on you and your motivation just goes down to zero. Let me know in the comments if that sounds familiar. So with that said, let's begin, shall we? The first one is called Eat the Frog. Now bear with me, I know it sounds weird, but trust me, there's some good stuff here. Mark Twain said, "If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, eat the biggest one first." Knowing that you have to eat a frog is unpleasant enough, but knowing that it's something that you have to do every single day. So you wake up and you get your morning coffee and you do your exercises and you're presented with this frog each morning. That's not something that you really want to put off, because if you do put it off, you're just going to be thinking about it all through the day. So you're going to be watching a movie, playing on the Xbox, or you might even be having a conversation with someone, but in the back of your head, all you're going to be thinking about is that thing that you put off that you just have to do. And by that I mean eating a frog. But why do that to yourself? Do yourself a favour and eat that frog first thing in the morning. So the second thing on the list is the 3-2-1 rule. Now yeah, this might sound pretty simple and pretty stupid, but it's just too stupid to ignore. So say you have to write an essay for college, or make that presentation up for work, or maybe, you know, make a YouTube video, or whatever it is you're doing. You hold that thing that you need to do in your head and you reflect on it. And then you say to yourself, okay, I have to go do that thing now. 3, 2, 1, go. And then you go to do that thing that you've been avoiding. Now that might seem overly simple because, well, it is, but it works. And what we're doing by that is utilizing the strategy of psychological momentum. Writing an essay or scripting a YouTube video can seem scary, so those are the kind of things that we put off. But counting, that's easy. I mean, anyone can do it, and we are way less likely to procrastinate counting. But by counting, we're building up psychological momentum to do the thing that we've been avoiding. So the next time that you start feeling yourself pausing, take a deep breath, say 3, 2, 1, go, and then just get up and do the thing that you need to do. Number 3 is the do something principle by Mark Manson. So a lot of people have it in their heads that in order to do something and take action, that you need the motivation to do it. And motivation comes from some sort of emotional inspiration. Some people think that we need the inspiration or the motivation or some good reason to start doing the thing that we've been procrastinating over. But action isn't just the result of motivation, it's also the cause of it. Inspiration, motivation and action is not a linear sequence. It's actually an endless loop that you can just start wherever you want to start it. And as inspiration and motivation are hard to come by and are completely unpredictable, it's much easier to start with action. But Salad Cream Boy is suave specimen of masculinity, I hear you ask. How do we first take action without the inspiration and the motivation to do it? That's the whole problem. I need that inspiration and motivation to take that said first action. Well, dear viewer, that's not actually true. All through the day, our lives are actually filled with things that we just do on autopilot without thinking about them. Things such as getting dressed, brushing your teeth, eating, and so forth. Without the ability to do these kind of things on autopilot, we'd, well, you know, die. It's actually by doing these things that we harness the psychological energy in order to be able to take further action. It's like what I said earlier about not doing anything day after day. It does tend to snowball on you and just create negative energy. It's the same principle here. The more action that you take, the more that you're going to be able to do. So the next time that you need to do something like do that essay that you've been putting off, make that awkward phone call, or even, you know, eat that frog, just tell yourself to do something, anything, and then harness the reaction from that action to generate motivation to be able to take further action. And that in essence is the do something principle. Number 4, purge your physical surroundings. So one of the reasons that we procrastinate is the fact that the physical environment that we live in practically begs us to. There's actually an intimate link between our physiology and our psychology. If we live in a chaotic, disastrous, physical environment, our mental state mirrors this. A chaotic and distracting environment can create a chaotic and distracted mental state. It's a paradox. But it's often easier to improve on your physical environment than it is to just suddenly feel good and clear-headed all of a sudden. So if you're more distracted than ever and you find it increasingly difficult to get any work done, pay attention to your physical surroundings and start improving upon them. Make sure that that space that you're taking up isn't detrimental to your productivity. And no, this isn't a nothing tip. It's a psychological phenomenon that we need to pay attention to and take advantage of if we need to stay focused. Number 5, purge your digital surroundings. Okay, so not only is it important to keep your physical environment in order, but you also want to make sure that that digital environment and digital surroundings that you're part of isn't begging you to, procrastinate. And this might be more subtle and it might be more insidious than it seems on the surface. So the situation might be is that you might get a notification from Amazon for something that you might not even need, or you get a blip on your phone from one of the various social media profiles that you have. These kind of things might seem like nothing. 1 second thing that you can just check and then you can just get back to work. But the problem is the most important work that we need to do in our lives requires a deep, unbroken focus for several hours. But it's virtually impossible to reach that deep work state if we're constantly being brought out of it by notifications from phone calls, text messages, and the various social media platforms. And if you have an ADHD-esque brain like mine, that's a big deal. And you'll follow that notification to say WhatsApp, Facebook, and to that shopping deal, and you'll probably engage with it for a good 10 to 15 seconds. And even worse than that, you might fall down that rabbit hole, so you'll spend a good 20 to 30 minutes on that distraction where you're actually wanting to do that thing that you're needing to do. So one of the ways to cure that procrastination is to eliminate the gateway to it. And this mainly boils down to how many things that you have on your desktop or how many apps that you have on your phone. When your phone goes off, it's like Mark Zuckerberg himself is just tugging on your shirt and him just telling you to do the things and just to look at the things that he wants you to look at, because that notification that's going off in your pocket is obviously more important than the thing that you're trying to do. Which means you have to ask yourself, are you the master of your own life, or is Zuckerberg? Number 6, stare at one thing for 60 seconds. So, judging by the title of this tip, you're probably thinking, wow, he's just running out of ideas and it's just after that watch time. And you'd be right, but it really is a good tip. One way to dramatically increase focus in 60 seconds, especially if you're already distracted, is to focus all of your attention on one specific target. This could be focusing on one letter in one word from the distance that you'd normally read it at, for an uninterrupted 60 seconds. Do not break eye contact and breathe deeply as you do it. And at the end of that 60 seconds, your focus starts to collect itself. It's a really good example of how intimately our psychology links to our physiology, and how our actual eye movement, not being chaotic, collects our mental focus as well. When we focus with our eyes, we're actually also focusing with our brain. Do this and you'll feel that you'll be able to penetrate through the resistance, and you'll be able to do that one thing that you need to do. Number 7, confront your distractions before working. Now, this might seem like a contradiction to the first tip, which is why I left it to the end, and I'd use this technique as a last resort, although it has actually been really effective for me recently, especially later in the day after I've eaten that first frog, but still have more frogs to eat due to the procrastination from early in the week and for things just piling up and so forth. The way this works is that you set a timer for yourself for 15 minutes or 10 minutes or however long it takes for you to engage with that distraction that you want to engage with, because what happens is that we don't want to do this super hard thing, so we escape from it impulsively. We open up our Word document, but then we check Facebook and see what's going on there. We're just dipping our toes into one thing or another, so we're not having an intentional break so that we can take that deep dive into the thing that we need to do. So what I've been doing is setting a 15 to 20 minute timer and intentionally diving into that distraction that I want to immerse myself in. So I'm checking my Facebook notifications and WhatsApp messages and anything else and ticking off that box. And I know this might sound weird, but it's actually the intentionality that makes a difference here. you intentionally tick off the box on all these platforms. Then you gain the mental clarity to say, okay, I have no excuses to do this thing that I've been procrastinating over. So give your brain that primal thing that it wants, let it feast for a dedicated amount of time, and give that higher judgment what it needs. It's like a negotiation with yourself. But wait, I've got a bonus tip for you. However, before that, I'd like to ask you, if you have been getting any value from this content, that I'd like you to consider smashing that like button and subscribing for any more tips on self-care and mental well-being. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people need motivation to take action. So if you want to look more into how to get motivated in the first place, I actually have a video that you can just click right here, because it's like I always say, at the end of the day, it gets dark.